Hey guys, what's going on? Again, your data with Raja. In today's video, we're going to learn e-commerce industry as an example for domain knowledge for data science along with metrics. So if you have not watched my previous video on metrics and as well as the SIPOC 5W1H logic technique to learn domain knowledge, so please visit that and come back here and you can learn that very easily in a shorter period of time. So let's get started. You all know that e-commerce industry is nothing but you order a product from website and you get your product to the doorsteps. So whenever you are into a company which is an e-commerce industry, you get any company for sort of example. So any company will have two areas where you'll be supporting in a data science project. So one is core process, another is support process. So let us see what are all these. So what is a core process? Core process is nothing but it is the chain of the process that is the heart of the business. And let us see an example in the e-commerce industry. What happens is that a supplier registers to the customer and supplier provides the information about the product. Product details are put up in the website and customers order the product from seeing the website, and then the seller ships to the customer and delivers it to the customer, and customer provides feedback or he returns the product. So this is what is a core process in the e-commerce business. But let us see what is support process. So support process is nothing but it's a chain of the processes that supports the business to improve, like IT team or quality team or HR team or data scientist team. So here is again an example. For example, so whenever a supplier or supplier wants to sell a product to our e-commerce business, so he wants to enter his information in a website or a portal. So we are in a team where that is creating such things. So now create a website or portal for registration and derive the parameters required for the suppliers to fill in and store the data in SQL database and refresh the data in a regular interval and send it to seller performance team and they review the data and report it to the leaders. So this is kind of support process. So here are some key notes before we step into in order to learn e-commerce domain knowledge. First, you need to know whether you work for a core process or a support process. So if it is a support process, you have to ensure that your project solution must not bring a risk to any other team in the organization and it must not affect any other team's metrics. So this is mostly seen in larger organizations where there are multiple teams working on a common goal where you do something but that again affects to another team. It is again a business loss. Next point is that interrogation is a must. So try to have a high level process mapping. So you have to shoot out a lot of questions in order to know any domain knowledge. So if you work on a core project, concentrate more on business trends, market or product knowledge and demand and value provided by the customer, and go into the competitors and strategies used by our business leaders in order to get a better satisfaction from the customers. And next important one is if you are working in a project, first of all, decide your SLA is as close as your start date. So since the business may or may not change in a shorter period of time, so at last, once you do your solution, if that is not going to help it, so we'll be regretting it. And there are companies like Amazon or Flipkart, so they are so much dynamic that they even shut down processes that don't benefit at a point of threshold. So you have to be very careful in choosing the SLA. Next is integrate various processes in order to get quick wins from the insights during EDA. So this is a common example again in a larger organization. So there may be some other team working on and it may affect some other team. So if you all integrate it into one umbrella, you can quickly provide the insights during the EDA and that gives more confidence to the stakeholders at the start of this project. Next point is you have to baseline the metrics in order to correlate with the respective business metrics, and you have to see that it has improved from your solution or from your machine learning model or your EDA insights. So you have to first of all baseline it, and then you got to step into the project. Now understanding the problem. So now you have a domain expert, and it is your turn to get more knowledge about the domain. So let us take an example that you work on a core project. For example, the problem statement is that In Q1 2021, there were totally 33% of customer ratings with comments that are lesser than 3 stars. And the trend is increasing by 5% per month. And imagine you are building up a clustering algorithm using NLP. So leave the last line. So you could understand the problem that the ratings are coming down. So first step, what you would do is to go to the domain expert and ask questions about what and how. So for that, there is a technique called a SIPOC or inverted DMAIC technique. So if you want to see that technique, you can see my previous video and also the metrics video to understand along with SIPOC and DMAIC. So we'll have a SIPOC DMAIC technique chart. So let us see here that supplier receives the order once the customer is ordering from the website, and he packs or ships the product, and next he labels the product and deliver it to the customer, and customer provides the feedback, and customer would provide a feedback that is lesser than 3-star rating if he is not getting the requirement for which he ordered. So we measure it that for each and every order whether it has fulfilled it or not, and we analyze why 3-star rating, and we'll see what can be improved or what can be predicted in future so that we solve this business problem, and then we decide what to be kept under control in order to solve this problem. So this is nothing but the SIPOC and inverted DMAIC. So you can call it as inverted DMAIC or a SIPOC DMAIC chart. So with this, you can understand the high level of the problem, and then we can go into one step deeper. So from the previous slide, we saw that there are like less star rating than 3-star, and it can be because of multiple reasons or multiple business environments. So data is huge, and the complex is there lies there in the textual data, and so it is difficult to provide insights to the readers. So this technique, where we are going to see now, in this technique also we may not observe from the previous diagram that there is a defect or a problem in the catalog page, which can be one of the source for less than star rating. So integration of process gives you more clarity towards domain knowledge. So many SIPOCs and DMAICs constitute to the core SIPOC, which is found in the previous slides. So now use SIPOC, inverted DMAIC, and PDCA and 5W1H logic. This logic is one of the best and easy, understandable logic where anyone can do this for any sort of domain. So I tried this in manufacturing domain, sales and service of safety products domain, and in e-commerce domain, and manufacturing of other electricity products domain. So I have used this technique in multiple domains. So first of all, I'll go with supplier first and decode it till to the minor level of the process and the data and the business. So let us take an example. We'll take only supplier registration process, and then we'll go how the process moves and how the data is being measured. So I'm also giving you a high level of one example. You can do it for deeper level, still more deeper, and it is dependent upon your organization whether it is small or large. So you can drill down to the minimum level of process and integrate more as of you can get more benefit out of it. So also you have to correlate with core process and support process. So any support processes will have a correlation with the core process. At least the metrics would correlate. If those are not correlating, then I think there is a problem within the business setup or the model. So with this technique, you can learn any domain in lesser period of time comparatively. So, for example, the supplier registration process. The supplier registration process is the first process that we should start in the core chain process. So, let us decode it completely. So, supplier registration process, where supplier who wants to register with our e-commerce website. So, he gives relevant legal identity information, all sorts of information about him. So, we process that through a website or portal or a template, and we get a complete clean data, and our customer is the next adjacent process owner or IT team or data team. Anybody may be the customer, and that customer would have already defined that he must have a right information about supplier in order to carry out the business seamlessly. And we also used to measure that metrics like lead time, how many defects are there for the particular supplier. All these can be done. An analysis Again, there are it can be connected with matrices like lead time or why the supplier could not deliver the product. Is that affecting the less than 3-star rating? Whether we have delivery complaints which has led to 3-star rating, which would directly correlate with supplier's performance. So we can analyze in such way. And in improve, we'll see what to improve, whether it's a website or a template or our analytics to supplier or analytics data which we provided to supplier. So all these things can be improved. And then we have the control mechanism. So how do we control fraud suppliers, fraud product? These are some high level examples, but you can still drill down more. And now the PDCA cycle. So PDCA stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act. So let us take the supplier from the SIPOC of previous slide, who are the supplier who tend to register to our e-commerce domain business. So the what is the plan is that supplier planning activities. What do we do there is to how do we contact or advertise to suppliers, and how do we check suppliers, and what action we take after checking the suppliers. So now here is a chart that I use for 5W1H logic along with SIPOC and inverted DMAIC and PDCA. So now I have taken only the supplier part and supplier registration process. You can take all the processes in the e-commerce domain and use this technique. So first of all, supplier planning activities. We saw that in previous slide. So we can post many questions like 5W1H is the basic logic template where you can ask 5W questions like who, what, when, where, which, or why, and 1H is how. So let us see the first one. So supplier planning activity. So who are the suppliers? So what is the plan to get the suppliers, and where are the suppliers? Which frequency should we plan for suppliers? Why do we select this supplier? So how do we select this supplier? So all these are like questions where you can ask the domain expert to get all sort of stuff about planning how to get suppliers. Then after that, what do we do with the supplier, or what do we do with the supplier data which we have got? Now what we do, who will contact suppliers? So which team inside our organization contacts to the suppliers, and what should the team do with the suppliers, and where should we measure the supplier data, and how is the criteria to select a supplier, how do we attract them to supply for us. And again in the checking, you again asks all sort of question like what is the criteria for supplier registration process, and what is the frequency that, how do we measure the suppliers, how do we gauge their business strength so that they supply to us seamlessly. All these can be asked during the domain expert as a process thing. But once you complete the process, I think you can move on with the business trends and the strategy, and how is market responding, and how are customer providing the value. So first step, I would recommend you to go into the process and then go out to the customers. And here is again the data understanding. So again it's the same. So what data is being measured, how it is stored, how it is being calculated. In some places metrics can be a complex calculations, it can be DPMO or DPU or any such calculations like that the organization is following. So also understand the data flow again with 5W1H logic, and again you integrate the process and data. Now let us see a complete process flow for an e-commerce industry, but this is a high level, very, very high level. And imagine that you are having a small e-commerce industry, but not big like Amazon or Flipkart. So I have decoded some of the basic process from a minimal 5W1H questions. So first of all, we get the the customer needs. And again, this is just focused on the supplier registration process, which we saw in the previous slide. So this we can see that there is a customer need, and it is being communicated to the marketing team, and marketing team communicates to the supplier team. They go and identify suppliers, and there is a supplier support team. They communicate to suppliers and they find suppliers. And if they have any queries, again supplier support team would help for suppliers. And supplier accepts the order, he inputs his detail in the ERP or portal, and again it goes to the website and it goes to the validation rules. And if there are any errors, and it is sent back to the supplier, and supplier queries back to supplier support team. And these validation rules, if they are correct, they go to the database, and it creates a supplier code, and it gives the supplier access, and those things are managed by IT team. And again we'll come back, the supplier inputs the registration, and if it is correct, he receives the product info template where he fills upon all the product details which he wants to put it in the e-commerce website, and then it goes on again to a data validation teams and tools, and then it passes through various data pipelines in order to get data normalized and in a correct form, and then it is stored in a database, and then it is being sent to e-commerce website where customer orders. So once the customer orders any product, the supplier would get a communication through our the profile which is being set by the IT team, and then he ships it to customer or he ships it to any sort of inventory, and they get the delivery confirmation and customer provides a feedback. So this is a common practice and process which have decoded for an e-commerce industry. So there can be multiple processes according to the size of the organization, or it can be so simple that you can have a small website, or you can even do a business of e-commerce in your WhatsApp. So it is all happening it now. So this is a basic flow, and you can decode all the basic flow through this step and systematic approach in order to go into a domain knowledge expert. So other key points which I want to tell you is that once you have derived this high level process mapping, then you can jump into the value provided by the customer. So if you know about the products or service, and you will know about the customers, what they do and how they value it, and how can we induce them to more buy, and how can you improve your product in order to get more customers. All that stuff you can do once you do this high level process mapping. Next, you can compare the metrics of different teams and connect the dots. So main disadvantage of any machine learning algorithm is it does not connect the dots in an organization. So this technique would help you in minimizing your time and ensuring you capture all the information or data in the business. So as I told you, machine learning gives you a prediction about what you have given to the system or you have given to the algorithm. It does not connect the dots. There are many such examples in the organization that had happened where there was no connection between one particular team and the solution provided by the other team, but it did not improve the business. So that was a regret for that particular team. So all these you have to keep in mind, and then we got to design or step into our first step of data collection and then performing EDA. So this is how I had been utilizing this technique in order to learn any process of any domain, and I have learned multiple domains. So after this, you can go on with the legal complications. For example, banks and insurance may have some legal implications into their data, into their business. So after knowing this, you can get that, and what are all the business case and why the law or rule came into the implication. All such stuff you can learn after this particular the organization understanding with a high level mapping. So this is what is SIPOC inverted DMAIC technique, and this is what is domain knowledge expertise. And slowly you will learn with this technique, and this gives a higher advantage that you can connect with multiple process owners, and you can solve the problem as quick as possible with their support. So I hope you had understand the e-commerce domain and the technique which I use to learn any sort of domain like this. So my next video will be on the recap on the first business basics topics from my roadmap. So people, if you have not watched the roadmap to become a data scientist in 6 months, please go to my playlist and see what is the roadmap, and stay tuned for the next topic is statistics. And please like my video and subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed, and hit the bell icon for the notification in order to learn more and easily. Bye bye people, and take care.